You hear the word idolatry, and what comes to mind? Probably ancient statues made of stone, right? But what if the most powerful idols today aren't physical objects at all? What if they're ideas we live by, maybe without even a second thought? In this explainer, we're going to distill the core arguments from a sermon by the theologian Dr. Isra Ahmed, who really tries to unmask these modern, hidden forms of what he calls shirk. Let's dive in and see what he has to say.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start by looking inward, at the self as an idol. Then we'll see how that idea expands outward, into our concepts of obedience and even love. After that, we'll tackle what the speaker calls the biggest challenges of our time. And finally, we'll bring it all back to how we can spot these hidden influences in our own lives. It's a journey from the inside out and then back in again.
So where does this all start? Well, according to the speaker, the journey to understanding modern idolatry doesn't begin with external gods, but with the one we face in the mirror every single day. And this really is the central question the sermon throws at us. It's a bit jarring, isn't it? The point is to get us to look past simple rituals and ask a much, much deeper question. What or who truly has the final say in our lives? Okay, so this brings us to a really core concept, nafs. In essence, it's the self, the ego, your personal desires. The speaker's argument is that whenever we knowingly choose our own desires over what we believe is God's command, we're essentially treating our nafs as our ultimate authority. In that one moment, it becomes our God. It's a very personal, very internal place to start this whole conversation.
And you know, this internal worship of the self, it doesn't just stay locked inside your head. The speaker argues it inevitably spills out into the real world, shaping who or what we give ultimate authority to.
Now, to really get what he's talking about, we have to understand this term, shirk. It's not just about bowing down to a statue. In this context, it means giving an attribute that's believed to be God's alone to someone or something else. And that could be anything, from the ultimate right to make laws to being the ultimate object of our devotion.
And this is where the speaker's argument really clicks into place. He draws a straight line from an individual person choosing their own desire over divine law to an entire society choosing a man-made system like popular sovereignty as its highest authority. From his theological viewpoint, these are just two sides of the very same coin.
And to really hammer this point home, the speaker quotes the poet Allama Iqbal. This verse is used to argue that even though modern systems might look shiny and enlightened on the outside, they can hide a reality where human authority has totally replaced divine authority. And from this perspective, that is a form of collective shirk.
Okay, so we've talked about obedience, but what about love? The speaker argues that this incredibly powerful emotion can also become a form of hidden idolatry if we get our priorities mixed up. So the sermon actually points to a specific verse in the Quran that lists out 8 of these really powerful worldly attachments. Now, the argument isn't that it's wrong to love these things. Of course not. The crucial point here is if the love for any of these becomes equal to, or even more, greater than the love for God, to the point where you defy God for them, that's when they become a partner in your devotion. And this is where he brings it right into our modern world. The speaker argues that for many people today, the nation-state itself has become this ultimate object of love. He even has a term for it, watan parasti, basically nation worship. The idea is if your moral compass becomes my country, right or wrong, and that overrides divine law, then the nation itself has become your deity. And again, he uses another really powerful verse from Iqbal to just drive this point home. The imagery is so stark, right? This new god of nationalism is dressed in a robe that's actually the burial shroud of religion. The deep implication here is that you simply can't have two ultimate loyalties. All right, so we've looked at the self-obedience and love. This brings us to the big question. What does the speaker identify as the biggest, most dominant forms of modern idolatry out there in the world today? And this is really the crucial shift in thinking he's asking us to make. We're not hunting for physical statues anymore. The entire point of the sermon is that the most dangerous idols are the abstract ideas that govern our modern lives, often without us even noticing. And out of everything, he boils it all down to just two huge, dominant belief systems that he sees as the main challenges to pure monotheism in our time. So, the first big one, it's the concept of popular sovereignty, something we touched on earlier. From this theological perspective, the belief that the ultimate absolute authority to decide right and wrong rests with human beings and not with God is presented as the greatest collective form of shirk today. And the second one is materialism.
And we're not just talking about loving nice things here. This is about a whole belief system where your ultimate trust, your security, your reliance, it's all placed on material things and wealth. He even cites a prophetic saying that describes someone like this as a servant of the dinar and dirham, literally, a slave to money.
Okay, so if these modern idols are these big, abstract ideas that are just woven into the fabric of our lives, how in the world are we supposed to spot them? This brings us to the final and maybe the most difficult piece of the puzzle.
Well, this sermon brings up this idea called riyakari, which is maybe the most subtle, most personal form of shirk there is. It's basically showing off in your worship. It's when you do a good deed, like praying or giving to charity, not purely for God, but at least partly for the praise or validation of other people. It completely corrupts your intention. He gives an example that makes this crystal clear. Picture this. Someone is praying. For the first 5 seconds, their prostration is purely for God. But then they realize someone is watching them, and they decide to hold the pose for 2 extra seconds, just to look a little more devout. The question becomes, who were those 2 extra seconds for? Suddenly, a single act of worship has 2 different targets, God and a human audience.
And this leads to what is, for me, maybe the most memorable line from the entire sermon. It's just a stunning analogy for how hard true self-awareness really is. It suggests that it takes this constant, vigilant effort just to see what's really truly motivating our own actions. And so that leaves us with this final, really important question. It's about bringing it all back home, away from the big ideas of politics and economics, and asking yourself, what's the black stone in your own life? What hidden desire or loyalty or fear might be influencing your actions in ways you haven't even seen yet? It's a question that really demands some deep personal reflection.